It's actually crazy how some of the best Star Wars content comes from a prequel series, from a prequel film that's not exactly considered to be a prequel film, but is under the label of a Star Wars story. Layers. Hey, there, Cinephiles. Today I'm reviewing Andor Season 2. I gotta be real with y'all, I did not see any of Andor until this season came into my inbox. So it's safe to say over the past couple of weeks, I have watched a lot of Andor. And now I kind of want to rewatch Rogue One, which I initially thought was overrated, which made me not excited to watch this show in the slightest despite its stellar reviews. But now, having seen the two seasons, I am so glad Rogue One exists, and finally, not just because of that Vader scene. This finally put the war in Star Wars, and it does a damn good job of it. Andor's Season 1 isn't necessarily as groundbreaking as many other people make it out to be, but having watched it now with Season 2, especially back to back in the way that I did for the first time for both, yeah, it's special stuff. The only real issue I have with this is that there isn't a season in between these two, or that this season wasn't necessarily split into two. There's so much that I feel like could have been covered within this season alone. In fact, even the show knows it itself because it does many time jumps. And in those time jumps and just kind of resetting the board every few episodes, I do feel like there's some things, whether it be not shown on screen or even just stuff in the season that just kind of sped past, that I think would have made for some great TV moments. There's so many storylines in here that are either briefly touched on, never touched on, or just sped through, and I feel like all of those storylines, well, most of them, deserved a bit more screen time, whether it be over the course of an entire new season or just in here as its own package. The biggest example of this is that there's one character in here that never on screen deals with the finality of another character, and I feel like that could have been one of the greatest moments in the entire show. But with that being said, for this being the only two seasons that we have of the show and will ever have, I still do really like it. Andor as a show does one thing amazingly across the board, and that's build tension. Through its plot, through its characters, it's not necessarily groundbreaking, but damn it, it made me care. This knows its tone and it goes for it unabashedly, and especially in this season, it does certain things a lot better than season 1, and there are some stuff that it falters on compared to the first season, but overall, as an entire show, the tension and the just having you on the edge of your seat when it needs to. It does it so well, especially in the peak of this season, which to me are episodes 8 and 9, and to me that is the peak of the entire show is in these two episodes, and it's just personally pretty damn good storytelling through TV. This is when the show is flying at its full strength. It's just exemplifying what great sci-fi can be. It's not only having a great plot, but it's fully showing its themes in such a wonderful and tension-filled and engaging way that you just cannot stop watching. Whether the themes here stick out like a sore thumb or really land with people or just fly by people's heads and them not understanding how it can relate to the real world today is, you know, in and of itself, but I think the writing here and just the way it's telling its story is so wonderful and just some of the best Star Wars that I have ever seen. These episodes in particular just have timeless themes that are just shown so well and are just top tier Star Wars for me. And I'm just so excited for people to actually see these episodes and just see the chatter online for it, and even talk about it with my friends who are much more into Star Wars, as well as those who have barely seen the Star Wars thing. I'm honestly still digesting the finality of this series, and with what we know happens in Rogue One, I do wish certain things were different now, especially in the film. But hey, it is what it is, and we still have a great show to look back on. And honestly, good on this show for making me care so much about these characters and pulling out so much emotionally out of me and through these plot lines and characters and just their relationships to each other. We know where a lot of these are going to end, and it's just, well, I mean, you see what happens after this. A lot of these characters aren't there, so you know exactly what's going to happen. Not exactly, but you know, you can understand where a lot of this is going. but you care for these characters and you care for where these arcs end. It's just truly impressive where it brings these characters emotionally and how it makes you feel, all while having such a strong anti-imperialist theme that is so clearly in the original films. It just brings that back to life. Of course, this as a series is so gripping, and it starts with the characters. And speaking of which, let's get into the titular character, who's a scoundrel turned rebel legend. Sound familiar? In all seriousness, Diego Luna in the writing makes Andor not just a Han Solo clone, but fully his own character. And to me, the best thing about him is that he's a conduit to some great secondary characters while still having fully his own agency. But now let me speed run through some character thoughts. Cyril's final scene in this, I really enjoy just where it all ends with him. Man, I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. Luthen is such a great character to bring the morality and the murkiness of that morality in what is a rebellion is so well told in everything that this character touches. Mon's arc is wonderful, although I do wish we got one final touch, and that may be touched on in another Star Wars media, whether it be another show or, I don't know, just something else that I haven't quite seen, but I do wish it was included in here, whether or not it has been included somewhere else. As for Deidre, as great of an antagonist as she is, I do wish we had a certain thing with her. I wanted one more scene. I needed it. For Bix, I'm not going to get into because I will easily get into spoilers with her. And for all the other characters in season 1 and season 2, I really enjoyed so many of them. All of them just felt so alive and just fully their own. I could generally go on for so long for all of these characters, but again, I am trying to be wary of spoilers because this is a non-spoiler review for the entire season. But man, if you like the characters in the first season, you're going to love them in here. For as real as they felt, they will genuinely be missed by me. As a person who was really into Star Wars when they were younger and is not so much into it now, I enjoyed the occasional Star Wars thing now, this show really did the impossible for me, and that it's made me care for a twice over prequel. This could have easily have backfired. This could have easily have been just another cash grab from Disney, but this show, again, it might be the best Star Wars that we've had in so long, at least since the Clone Wars finale. And I do think a major benefit for me getting on board with the show so late in the game is that I got to enjoy it all in one go for the very first time. And man, if you have not seen this show yet, definitely worth watching this way. Just honestly wait for it to all end and just watch it all together over the course of a month because it is so worth it. And if you haven't seen the first season in quite some time, I completely urge you to watch this because there's a lot going on in this season as well as the first one, and if you just miss some of those nuances, you won't get the full impact, at least as much as you could. Overall though, this season is great. Again, the only issue I have with it is that I wish we had more, which, is not the worst thing to be a flaw about your show. But alright, those are my thoughts on Andor Season 2. Be sure to let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. I really cannot wait for people to see episodes 8 and 9. But alright, as always, thank you guys for watching, liking, and subscribing. Be sure to stay tuned for more Yeti Films content, and I'll catch you later.